talk about how we get women to change the world and how we help inspire them to do just that. So to do that, I want to introduce you to someone really important to me. Let's see, here we go. This is Thea. Thea is the feisty, spunky daughter of our culture program manager at HubSpot, Kate Morin. Thea, as you can tell by her t-shirt, plans to take over the world. She's smart, she's inspired, she's fun, she's dynamic, and the world is at her feet. I want to introduce you to someone else who might be a more familiar face to you, Barbara McCarthy. She's our Director of Engineering here in EMEA for HubSpot. She is also smart, inspired, interesting, highly technical, a dynamic engineering leader. So this is what the trajectory should look like for women to grow into business and tech. Thea becomes Barbara, very linear line, highly aspirational women, we support them to get along the way. This is the reality of what the career trajectory for most women actually looks like. So studies show that when women enter the workforce, their aspiration to become C-level executives is roughly the same as their male counterparts. And just 5 years into the workforce, that drops precipitously. So what does that tell us? It means we all have work to do to help shape the trajectory of women in tech. I'm very proud that I work at an organization that has 3 female board members. What I'm less proud of is the fact that we are part of just 20% of companies globally that have 3 female board members. So I'm going to talk about how we change that together. And spoiler alert, it's both men and women that need to be part of the solution. So I'm going to talk about 3 ways we can set women up for success to shoot for the stars and actually make it. First things first is reinforcing confidence. I already talked about the fact that when women show up in the workforce, they have roughly the same aspiration as men. And that's exciting, but we need to reinforce that confidence on a daily basis. Just case in point, a Carnegie Mellon study asked a bunch of women who were graduating, what do you think you're going to make? What do you think you deserve to earn in 5 years? Their answer, $64,000. Not so bad. We talk about the gender pay gap in the abstract, but in fact, it actually starts in women's minds as far as how they perceive their own value. What do you think men said, more or less? Least surprising news ever, men said $80,000. So if you think about that, that's $16,000 before you even start in the workforce. And that is perceived value. That is what women think they deserve. And so part of our task that we simply must not rest on our laurels to fight against is the perception that women are okay with deserving and earning less than their male counterparts. So how do we fix that? We encourage micro-risks. So what do I mean by that? Many women I talk to think of courage as something you either have or you don't. And the reality is I think of courage much like a muscle. It's something you have to train on a regular basis. So rather than thinking of yourself as a risk taker or someone who has courage or doesn't, instead think about taking small, tiny risks in your career that help you grow. So what does that actually look like? The research on risk taking actually suggests that men take more risks than women. But when the researchers actually dove deep into that, what they figured out is we assess risk based on sports betting, based on games, very traditionally male industries. And when it turns out, actually, when you dive deeper, women take just as many smart risks as men do. We just need to encourage them and actually activate that risk on a regular basis. So if there is a woman on your team, whether you are a male or female manager, what can you do to encourage her to take micro risks that help close that gap? Keeping in mind that right at the start of her career, she might think she deserves to make less than her male counterparts. So whether that's encouraging her to keep a file of positive things that have happened, encouraging her to document some of her accomplishments, encouraging her to speak on a stage like this, to blog or create content that she might not otherwise do, the sheer inspiration to take a micro risk can make a major, major difference in someone's career trajectory. And the final step in helping women shoot for the stars, in my opinion, is changing the narrative. I've been lucky enough to be a female executive at HubSpot for the last 5 years. I've been on countless panels on women in tech. Every single one, I've been asked about work-life balance and work-life fit and how women have it all. My male counterparts, on the other hand, are rarely asked that question. And so one of the things I want to encourage you to do is think about the questions that you ask of your peers, the questions that you ask on a panel, and ask yourself if you can change that conversation. So what if we asked more of our male leaders, how do you balance work and family? How are you an amazing working dad? Tell me about that. Do you feel pressure to have it all? Imagine that. Imagine if my male counterpart, Christian Kinnear, our managing director in EMEA, who's the proud dad to Daniel, got that question. He deserves it. He's frankly way better at work-life fit than I am. But I'm the person that always gets that question. What if instead they said, Katie, what are your plans to join your next board? How are you moving the needle on women's leadership? What does that look like? If we change the conversation, we meaningfully change the trajectory of gender in tech, and I think the world. So in closing, what I want to say is 3 things. 1, confidence really matters. And inspiring young women to think big, be big, act big, work big makes a huge difference. So if you're someone who knows an amazing woman, take the time to go over and say, I admire you. You're doing amazing work. Tweet at her, share her content. That makes a big, big difference in the trajectory of our workforce over time. Second thing, if you are someone who is a woman or you're a man who supervises women, think about confidence and micro-risks. Are you able to push someone rather than thinking about just, hey, can you reach the C-suite? Could you take a small risk that might make a big difference tomorrow? Those small steps make a huge difference. And then finally, help change the narrative by changing the conversations you ask. Ask the men in your life about work-life balance. Ask them how they're navigating family. Ask them to be vulnerable. And similarly, encourage women to aspire for board leadership, CEO positions. Don't just ask them about what it's like to be a working mom or work-life fit. In closing, I just want to say a big thank you. Inspirefest is such a beautiful celebration of diversity and inclusion in tech. We're so ecstatic to be a part of it. And at HubSpot, our journey on diversity and inclusion is just beginning. We have a lot of work to do, but we're proud that we have 45% of managers and up at our company who are women. And so rather than thinking about building a gender equality-driven company, we're doing it. And so I highly encourage you to look for companies that do that, to be a part of creating that change in your organizations, and to partnering with us to make that happen. I look forward to doing it with all of you. Have a great morning, and look forward to chatting more.